We've been really trying to think what it would take to transform a person. We've been really trying to consider what would it be that would be a really deeply formative, transformative work of God in someone's life, so that, we really want to see you guys do well with Jesus, and we really want to see you guys find that your life with Jesus then flows into what you do all through the week. It's not a heart of ours just to kind of have warmer seats because your bum has been on it for a bit. Like, we want to see a warmer, transformed world. And so we've been thinking a lot about this, and today we're just going to look again at Nehemiah. Nehemiah is a guy who lived 2,500 years ago. So that's quite a long time, isn't it? And in some ways you might think, what on earth has his life got to compare to my life? But I hope if you were here last week, you'd have felt that actually there's some inspiration that we can take from this guy. He's in the scriptures, he's in the Old Testament. He's a guy who was taken from his homeland, or at least his family were. Whether he was himself, I'm not sure. And he's living in Persia, where they may well have spoken Farsi. And he's there, and he hears about a bad report from his home nation, from Jerusalem. A really bad report. And as he sits down in that and takes the time to really think through, like, wow, let me feel the pain of this loss. Let me feel the pain of what is going on in my home nation. Not just to distract himself, not just to kind of find something else to do or to minimize the problem, but to really sit down in it and say, let me recognize this is a big deal. When he does that, he then suddenly discovers that he is already in the midst of a place that God has put him, and he's walking every day into a room which he can now walk into with a fresh purpose, fresh sense of an assignment from God, that God would use him to bring hope and healing and redemption to his people who are in ruins and in trouble and in disgrace. And so we're looking at this, look, just to inspire you, that you are probably going to walk into a room at some point tomorrow. I mean, most people do. And you may have walked into that room many, many, many times. But the inspiration is this, that if you can hear from the Lord and have a moment where you sit down and recognize the challenges that there are in that room, of the people who are in that space, then actually you can begin to walk into the room with a fresh sense of assignment. God is sending me into this space, not randomly. This isn't just a random thing. I'm being put here by God to bring his hope and his healing, his redemption, and something, a new story can be written in this room because of me being in it. And let me tell you the truth. That is the case for you. If you know Jesus, then he has a covenant of love over your life. He's committed himself to you for the sake of the rooms that you're going to walk into, for the sake of the people you're going to bump into, for the sake of their brokenness being redeemed, their disgrace being washed away, for the sense that stuff that's burnt up can be rebuilt in their lives. That's why he calls us, one of the main reasons he calls us. And so I really want to inspire you about this. And so what we've used this as a kind of a way of thinking about it. If you don't know Jesus, I want to tell you that he would gift you the most amazing identity you could ever imagine. I mean, you could try and earn your own identity if you want. You can try and earn it through your achievements, through people's opinion of you, through whatever, blah, 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 blah. You can try and earn an identity, and it will probably be quite hard work and very insecure. And instead, Jesus says, I'm going to gift you an identity of a child of God, eternally valued, somebody who has great dignity and honor, somebody who can approach God's own throne no matter what you've done, and you can be welcomed in by the God of all things. It's an identity that you can be gifted, and it can never be taken away from you. It's like a covenant, which means it's a promise. So you get given this thing. And some of you here, really great thing to do would just be to think, am I really aware of the identity that God is wanting to give me as a child? Like this is totally transformational stuff. When you get to it, to get that, transforms you, because that never changes. That's the foundation of your life. And then you have a purpose. Did you know you have a deep, deep purpose on your life? God created you for a reason. This wasn't a mistake. Before you were born, he said, I'm going to use you for my glory and for the healing of the nations. That's what he said. There's a purpose over your life. That really, truly is. And this is what the scriptures say to you over and over and over again. There's a purpose for your life. Now, all over the place, you'll hear stories and thoughts and ideas that make many of us feel like we do not have a purpose to our life. What's the point of my life? I don't feel any meaning. Like, why am I going through this stuff? I just don't understand. And there aren't many good answers out there. But this is a great answer. It's a great answer. It's true. It's real. There's a purpose to your life. God made you for a reason. And his agenda for your life is that in the rooms that you're walking in, the purpose of him to bring healing and hope to others would be played out. And you can know this. And we want you to know this. We're trying to help you know this and feel this. And then you have assignments. And so it might be that your assignment is, at the moment, I don't know, maybe you are, you're trying to look after a sick relative. It's an assignment from God. And you can see that as a heavy burden, and you can feel that as something that is just really sapping your energy, or you can, in the same level of challenge of that reality, feel, but there's a purpose here. As I do this, I am serving the glory of God. I'm showing the dignity and honor of this person. I'm honoring him. I'm bringing a sense of healing and hope of God's own loving goodness to this relative that I'm caring for. You could be somebody who walks into a family gathering and you begin to realize, I've not just stuck in this family. I was assigned to it by God. And his assignment of me being in this family is so that I can raise this issue and help us actually have honest conversations. We don't just keep kind of ignoring stuff. I can be the one who enables us slowly, surely, gently to begin to actually, let's have an honest conversation here. Let's find a way to do it. You could be somebody who has an assignment in a particular line of work. It might be that your assignment is that you go and you clean the toilets. And it's an assignment from God that you can be used by him to bring cleansing where there is dirt and hope. My granddad used to say he dreamed of being a street sweeper, which I never dreamed of being. But the idea that there's an assignment on your life, do you know that? There's an assignment on your life given by God for the purpose of his glory and the healing of the world. And so Nehemiah is a great example to us of somebody who wakes up to this. He wakes up to it, and then from that moment on, his life is changed. And as his life is changed, he begins to see the assignment on him. He then brings great hope and healing and change to his whole nation, in fact, which is an amazing thing to think. Well, there could be somebody in this room, genuinely. Could be somebody in this room. And today you wake up to part of the assignment that God's given you and the purpose on your life, and you just set off on a road. That means that in 10, 20 years' time, people look and think, I don't know how, but our family is now really different. Our business was heading in this direction. It's now a great place to be and work, and it's doing well. This school that I was in, or my kids were in, we all weren't sure what the next Ofsted report was going to say, but now look at this place. It's doing well. That's the heart of God for you. That's the heart of God for you. So let's look at Nehemiah chapter 2, because how many people know that setting out on an assignment is not as good as finishing an assignment? You know that? Yeah? And who knows that the idea of going and doing an assignment is way easier than actually doing the assignment? You know that? Thankfully, we have some wisdom and sort of helpful stuff that Nehemiah brings to us on what happens when you actually set off on an assignment, knowing it's the assignment God's given to you. This is where he says, I went to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where he goes for his assignment. He goes to start the assignment God's given him. After saying 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. You know, there's no horses, and he wasn't riding in a grand manner. By night, I went out through the valley gate towards the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate. That's quite a name for a place, isn't it? Got one of those in our house. Examining, what? Just seeing if you're still awake. examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on towards the fountain gate and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through, so I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials didn't know where I'd gone or what I was doing, because as yet I'd said nothing to the Jews or the priests or the nobles or the officials or any others who'd be doing the work. Then I said to them, "You see the trouble we're in? See the trouble we're in? Jerusalem lies in ruins. Its gates have been burned with fire. Even its signs have fallen over. Come, let's rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, "Let us start rebuilding." So they began this good work. But then Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, and they mocked and ridiculed us. "What is this that you're doing?" they asked. "Are you rebelling against the king?" I answered them by saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you'll have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it." Okay, here's wisdom for you on the assignment that God has given you. Okay, here's some wisdom for you. Now, the first one isn't in the passage, but we're not going to do any more on Nehemiah. So let me just say, Nehemiah is a great prayer. And if you don't pray about your job, if you don't pray about your family, if you don't pray about what you're doing in your life, let me encourage you to start doing it. Nehemiah prays 14 different prayers, from walking to a room, "Oh, God help," to long extended prayers, really dealing with things. So maybe you've got a meeting tomorrow, and maybe you're already okay about your meeting, but maybe just as you go into your meeting, you can say, "Oh, God help," as you go into your meeting. I mean, that's a great thing to do. Maybe there's bigger things you need to pray through and think through, but it'd be great just to pray. There's a power of prayer. There's a power in prayer. And so I just encourage, be somebody who prays. But let's look at what it says in the passage. Here's the first thing. Be willing to work at night. Be willing to work at night. There's a phrase, "by night" or "after dark," which is used 3 times in this passage. Isn't that really interesting? That's really, really interesting. Verse 12, verse 13, and verse 15. What does by night mean? By night means it's less safe. You haven't got the protection of sunlight. The robbers, the criminals, the people who want to do no good come out at night. Secondly, it's harder to see. In the daytime, the sun is a very helpful light. But at night, all you've got to see is a little candle and an oil lamp, which will show you a little bit of space in front of you. And thirdly, the thing about doing things at night is you sleep less. Anybody do shifts? Any shift workers? Oh yeah, look at the back. It's hard to work at night because you sleep less. The truth of this is, the assignment that God is sending you on is like being sent out in bad weather. It's like going out in bad weather. In the assignment of God, there will be moments where you feel less safe and less secure than if you'd just done whatever you used to do. There's moments where the risk of saying, "I'm going to try now to be somebody who God uses to bring change to this situation," means that I feel like people must be talking about me. I feel less safe in this moment. It's harder to see. You're doing something new. You're pioneering. We have people in this community regularly. They'll say, "Oh, I'm the first person. I'm an Eastern European trying to interact with people who are not from my part of the world. I'm a Nigerian. I'm Caribbean. I'm Brazilian," whatever it is. And the reality is, it's harder to see. You're thinking, why is everybody acting like that when I would act like this? It's a harder thing to see when you're pioneering on an assignment, or you're trying to make decisions in your business, and you're thinking, "Oh, it's harder to know what I should be doing next. I think this is a good idea, but it's not so clear to me." It's harder to know. You're trying to write a new narrative in your family, and the whole thing is, it's a new narrative, so you aren't totally sure what this decision will lead to. It's like you're walking with an oil lamp instead of with the whole sunlight mapping out everything in front of you. And it's hard work. Now listen, one of the main things that people get wrong is that they get given an assignment by God. There's an exciting thing put in front of them, and then they get to the position where they feel, "I feel less safe. I feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not sure where this is going to lead, and I'm really tired. And so they give up. They give up. And the reality is that we see from Nehemiah, you do your assignments at night. When life is hard, I used to think this, when I was an immature Christian, this is what I used to think. If I'm in the will of God, if I'm doing what God wants me to do, life will be easy. Things will go well. Things will happen. A door will just open for me. Oh, the door's open, it must be the Lord. The door's closed, it must not be the Lord. That's what I used to think as an immature Christian. And then over the years, especially coming to Croydon to plant the church, and we were absolutely convinced that the Lord had told us to come and given an assignment, come and start a new church in Croydon. No income, no congregation, no church, nothing. Just move. And everybody would say, oh, well, God will provide. He'll provide your house, he'll provide your kids' thing, well, you get all the money, you'll get it. You'll get it all. And it took a long time to get a house. Really hard work. And in the end, the one that we got, we were grateful, so grateful for it. But we lost thousands of pounds that we felt we should have had from the value of what we were selling and getting. Just because it's such stressful, hard work. And there were times I just used to go to bed and think, God, how can it be this hard? We then moved to Croydon and we had 6 or maybe even 8 months of no school that we wanted that we could possibly get our kids to in the morning, offering a place for our kids. No places. I mean, it's hard work to try and homeschool 4 basically preschool age kids and plant a church in a house that you've just moved into when you don't have any money. Let me tell you, it's hard work. And there's moments I used to say, I just feel like I'm slugging uphill. Like, are we doing the right thing here? Wouldn't it be easier if this was God? And Les used to say, no. This is the Lord and we will do it. And let me tell you, if you're willing to work at night, it comes to the point where you suddenly discover it's like you've carved out a territory for people behind you to follow. Like you put in the hard labor, but a time comes when you look and think, oh, the sun is now shining. Things are now happening around us for these people. A change is coming. So listen, just don't give up. Just don't give up. Just turn to the person next to you and say, just don't give up. It's hard. It's hard, but it doesn't mean you're in the wrong place. It's hard. It doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. Just don't give up. Don't give up. Keep pursuing the assignment the Lord has given you. Now listen, some of you, it might be hard work because you are doing the wrong thing. Okay? So just because it's hard doesn't mean it is the right thing. Okay, just to be really super clear. But if it's something that you know the Lord's asked you to do, it's an assignment that's in front of you. Don't give up because it's hard. Okay? Give up because it's wrong. But don't give up because it's hard. Be willing to work at night. Secondly, do good research. Do good research. Did you notice that twice in the passage, verses 13 and 15, the phrase is examining. I went and examined the wall. Did you notice that? And in verses 12 and 16, it says, I did not tell everybody. See, what Nehemiah is doing is he's doing good research on what actually is the situation, and he's also protecting himself from bad advice. Do you know there's people out there who are going to give you advice, and it's bad advice? Did you know that? In fact, a plan of the enemy is to put people around you in your life and say, here's a really great idea for you to follow. And they sound really credible, and it feels like it's great advice, but it's bad advice. And if you follow that advice, you will start to ruin and cause trouble for the assignment that God has given you. So what you do instead is you protect yourself from bad advice. Let me give you a little hint of how you do this. Next time you go to get your hair cut, and your person cutting your hair says, what's going on in your life? And you start talking about it, and they start telling you what to do not listen to what they say. That's not a good place to get advice. Let me tell you something else. Next time you think, I wonder what's going on. Let me go online. Or there's this person on Instagram. They seem to be really brilliant. And they curate a view of themselves. And then you have no window into what they're saying is right or not. You get this all the time in church. Somebody writes a book. Somebody says, hey, come do this. And you're like, well, have you got a single disciple who's doing well? All these famous people, you think, well, show me one person they've discipled who's doing well. Don't listen to their advice. Maybe you've got a relative and you should just not listen to their advice. It's just bad advice. A business owner, just be careful if you're setting on a new venture. Don't say yes to anybody coming and advising, being a partner, joining in. Just protect yourself from bad advice. Do good research. Prioritize research into those who've actually done and actually proven to do what you're trying to do. Because there's lots of people out there who are doing the things you're probably trying to do. There's lots of people who've started businesses. There's lots of people who've sought to make a change for people who are asylum seekers and refugees. There's lots of people who've worked out how to get a family interacting well. There's lots of people who've done what you're trying to do. And what you want to do is find out who's actually done it and look at what they say. Listen to their podcasts, read their books, prioritize those things. I've talked a few times about business because we have Andy here. If you're thinking of starting a business or you own a business or you're considering anything that real, listen, once a month or maybe every couple of months, but very regularly, we have a group of people doing exactly what you're trying to do who meet in our entrepreneurs and business owners gathering. They meet, we watch a video from some of the experts in the world are trying to talk through challenges and things you have in the business world and things you should think through, and then you get to discuss it and pray for each other. That's exactly the kind of space you want to seek out. Because these are the kind of spaces where you can protect yourself from bad advice and do some good research. And if you can find that space for you in whatever field is you're in, I would highly, highly recommend it. Get over your insecurity, admit what you don't know, and ask people who seem like they know it. Now, this is why my preference is generally for incremental improvement rather than massive new changes. So I think this is what Nehemiah does. I just want to recommend to you, rather than rolling into, fanfare on all his horses, I'm rebuilding Jerusalem, he does a small change, a small change, a small change. And generally, if you're trying to see a change come, the best thing to understand is you're going in bad weather, and so you walk steadily and carefully in the right direction, and you see things change over time. Do not get discouraged if it's slow. Do not get discouraged if the weather feels bad. Just keep on moving in the direction that you know is incrementally towards what the change would look like. Recognize you're in a story. Bad advice is a massive strategy of the enemy against you, so protect yourself through it. Use good discernment processes. Should I marry this person? Should I start this relationship? Should I start doing this new activity? Should I build good discernment into your life? Protect yourself from bad advice and do good research. Finally, use the covenant of love to bash away discouragement. Did you hear what they did, the guys who come? Nehemiah's just at the beginnings of what he's trying to do. There's a sense that things are going to potentially change because of his assignment that he's woken up to. And then people come and mock and ridicule him. Anybody ever had that? You're just trying to get going on something, and somebody comes in and mocks you or ridicules you. What have you got to show for what you've been trying? You think you're something? Oh, you guys, you're so arrogant trying to do this thing. Who do you think you are? Etc., etc., etc. Verse 19. This is a picture of the evil powers that are against you. Do you know the prime name that Jesus uses of the devil is Satan, which means the accuser. He's here. These guys are a picture of the plan of the enemy. If he can't give you bad advice and you're off to do something, what he'll try and do is ridicule you or mock you to discourage you. And the reality is that probably in this room there'll be 20, 30% of people who just through discouragement are not feeling that they can continue with the assignment that God has given them. You're just so discouraged. Just so discouraged. And this is not God's heart for you to live in that space of discouragement. There's a voice that comes at you, wants to ridicule you. And what does Nehemiah do? He uses the covenant of love over his life to bash it away. What does he say? He says, the God of heaven will give us success and we're his servants. ... Now, do you know you can just ignore and bash away discouragement? There's a voice that's trying to tell you, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. You haven't got it. And you can just, in the power of Jesus, just say, I refuse to be discouraged. God is a great God. Nothing is impossible with him. He rules over all the heavens and the earth. He's used lots of idiots, lots of stupid people for more significant things than I'm trying to do. He is able. It's not about me, it's about him. And I'm just his servant here. All I'm trying to do is what he's asked me to do. So I'm just not going to listen to any discouragement. I refuse to accept it. Now, you understand this isn't blind optimism. We understand the difference. Oh, success. I name it and claim it. It's not that. It's just simply to say there is a God in the heavens who has called me. He's chosen me. He wants to use people like me. It's the weak and foolish things on this earth that he uses to shame the wise. He uses people like me. And so I just won't be discouraged when people say I'm no good. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. I will just choose to continue walking this path. I refuse to be discouraged. And some of you just need to know, just don't be discouraged. Just don't be. You have a choice in your will to just say, I say no to discouragement. And you just remind yourself that God is over your life and your thing you're doing isn't your idea, but it's as part of your service of him. Now, wouldn't it be amazing, wouldn't it be so amazing if just a few of us even stopped being discouraged, didn't give up. We just knew there was a covenant of love over us. We did some good research. We didn't listen to bad advice. We just prayed a bit. Wouldn't it be amazing if just in your company that you work for, in your household that you live in your network that you're involved in your idea that you have in your head, wouldn't it be amazing if just some of us said, oh, okay, God, you can do anything, so why don't I just keep trying? Why don't I just keep pursuing this? Slowly, as if somebody walking in bad weather, I'm just going to keep on going and I'm going to keep incrementally improving, keep on seeking what's of the Lord. He has called me. There's a purpose to what I'm doing. And whether I fully get to the end or not, there's purpose even in this journey that I'm walking. Wouldn't that just be an amazing thing? The suggestion is that in Croydon, there's 400,000 people. I mean, wouldn't it just be a sweet thing if maybe just even some people in this room said, well, I'm just going to take my assignment on and I'm just going to try and be one of these 400,000, just somebody who begins to see something come of the kindness and goodness of God to our town. I mean, God does these kind of things with people like you. Did you know that? It's all he's ever used. I understand there's something like 57 million people in this nation. So what if there was just one or two here who said, okay, God, I'm going to seek in what I'm doing to try and be somebody who just says yes to you. You're great. You can do anything you want. I'm not going to try and be too grand for myself, but I'm just going to say yes. And who knows? There could be somebody here who is used by God to bring a change which gradually flows through and builds up to be something that changes the nation. And maybe there's some people here who would have an influence beyond that. A number of years ago, we just said I remember sitting in a connect group, as we talked about, it was a small group at that time. Oh, I don't know, Lord, I feel like the church is a bit rubbish, generally. It would just be really great if the church just started to be more loving, like more committed to the scriptures, more people who go out and make a difference in the world, and just set off on assignment. And whatever, 20 years later, just to see the Lord at work in our lives, in my life. It's been a hard road in bad weather. And yet you turn around and think, wow, what the Lord is using me for is just such a privilege, so much joy to see him using me. And so I really want to encourage you as an individual. God would love to just have even a few of us in this room. He'd love you to be somebody, okay, yeah, why don't you use me, Lord? Change my family. Change my company I work for. Change this network of people I'm part of. Even change something bigger than that. What a joy that would be. Now, as well as you as an individual, we also want to flag up how we feel more and more convinced that God's plan is that he would use us as a church community to really make a significant shift and a change. We feel he's given us assignments, and Leslie's going to come and talk to you about the particular assignment that we think he's giving us for this next season.
So over the last few months, we've really wanted to work on cohesion in the church. So we had our big church weekend where we talked a lot about that. And we're keen not to just become bigger, not to become just bigger in number, but to be more pleasing to Jesus, to increasingly become more pleasing to Jesus, to see more people do well with the Lord. And so we've worked to clarify what we feel the call of Jesus is on Croydon Vineyard. And we've identified 3 things. First of all, to contend for an awakening in Croydon with many diverse people coming to faith, being transformed by Jesus and receiving the mission for their life through the gospel of the kingdom. Second, to care for the poor among us and empower them to a better future, for a better future. And 3, to help resource the wider church resurgence in the UK and beyond. So these things excite us personally. And as we've shared them in stages across the church, we feel there's been a level of excitement and agreement across the congregation as we've started to share them. And as with all good vision, the key is not just in identifying it, but in working it out. What we can and must do in order to see it come to pass. And we spent significant time praying and thinking about this. And so our strategic team, which is Tom and I, Zach Carpenter. Zach, just stand up, give us a wave. This is Zach. You saw him leading worship. He's also on the strategic team. Andy Brims, who's out with the youth today. Leon and Sherelle Spence, who are generally here in the mornings. And Graham Bright, who's our chairman of our trustees. That's the strategic team. We've identified the following 4 things we must do this season in order to achieve that vision and work towards that vision. So these are the 4 must-dos we've identified. First of all, upgrading the look and feel on Sundays so that we have confidence to invite people and that our content, which has excellent content, has the best chance of enabling salvation, transformation and growth. Second, doubling our Sunday numbers. We feel that's the Lord. Third, doubling our connect groups, the number of connect groups, so we can see more people actually being transformed, finding God's mission in their life and learning how to live it. And fourth, becoming financially strong and acquiring a 10 years Monday to Sunday building. And some of that's not new. We've been talking about that for a while, but we've codified it into those 4 things. And in landing on these 4 pointers, we now have a renewed sense of our assignment for Sundays to significantly enhance our Sunday production and make space for many more people in the kingdom. It's the kingdom work. And this inevitably leads us to think about our Sunday service times and formats. So a year ago, we launched this service, the 4 p.m, as a place to see more capacity in the church and to extend our mission to Croydon. We've been 10 months in this endeavour now, and it has borne fruit. People have encountered Jesus in the 4 p.m. service. We baptised some people in this service back in October, which actually wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a long time. We have about 60 adults attend the 4 p.m. each week. And this has also made space in the mornings for people to fill the space that was left as we multiplied. And it has filled. And overall, we've seen about 30% growth in 12 months through this endeavour, which is amazing. And we praise the Lord for that. And those things are real. However, the 4 p.m. has not been without its challenges. In truth, our volunteer teams have been very stretched, relying on a few people serving well and above beyond what is sustainable. And as the 10:30 p.m. has grown again, the need to arrange different setups in the morning, different setup for the morning and different setup for the afternoon has only added the burden on teams. If you're here in the mornings, it looks very different than it does in the afternoon. And perhaps most importantly, we found that most people just want to attend a church in the morning. Even people exploring faith or coming back to faith. And this surprisingly seems to include our young people. And our young people, one of the key demographics we were aiming the 4 p.m. at. Therefore, after doing a lot of research and wanting to let you know what we're looking at, but very seriously, we're looking at rearranging our Sunday services. Moving from having a 10:30 a.m. service and a 4 p.m. service to having 2 identical back-to-back morning services, one starting at 9:30 and the other at 11:30. So they're 2 morning ones, but the timings will change. We haven't yet worked out all the implications. Some of us are thinking, but what about this? What about this? What about this? We haven't worked out all the implications or the fine print of this possible decision. And we have quite a bit of work to do in the next few weeks to think it all through fully. But we wanted to let you know about this now, at this stage, both so that you can help us examine what the changes will mean, and also to pray for the favour of our great and awesome God who rules the heavens. So I'm going to hand back to Tom.
Okay, so I wonder how you're feeling off the back of that news. We recognise that in anything we seek to do to follow the Lord, there are questions that we want to avoid bad advice, we want to do good research, and we want to try and work out, is this the right thing to do? And in the midst of that, we are not saying that if we change things, it's going to be easy, simple, or pain-free. We know that particularly as we're saying this to a room of people who come to the 4 o'clock, there will be instantly, how does this affect me? What would I do about this? And we totally understand that. That's a helpful and good thing to be asking. It's right to be thinking about those things. We want to hear and understand those things. And yet at the same time, we want to say, and yet following Jesus on mission is never 100% easy. That's not going to be the best answer to say what's the easiest option. We want to see what is the right option. And we want you to know there really is a great and awesome God in the heavens. We have tested it out as a family. We know that he makes a covenant of love with his people. And so we want to say that we are considering changing something so that we can see more of the loving greatness and goodness of God breaking out. And we fully believe that when we choose to do things, to shift things for his sake, that his covenant of love does play out over time. Our God is faithful. We've seen that in our family's life, and we trust we would see that if we do change things in this community as well. And so we want to just flag this up. We want to acknowledge that it may be you may be feeling really unsettled. You may be annoyed with us. You may be trying to work out what on earth this means. And we want to say, yeah, that's great. That's all part of this process. We're not trying to avoid that or embarrassed about that. We're trying to be transparent and upfront with you. And we want to finish by just saying this to you. Although we are, with Leslie, thinking about what we do on a Sunday with our services, we really fundamentally want you to know that God is not more interested in a community of people and what they do on a Sunday than he is in you and your life, what you do Monday to Saturday. God is a great and awesome God. He has created you with an identity that can't be changed for a purpose that is powerful and significant and will go on beyond your lifetime. And he gives you assignments. He never makes mistakes. He gives you assignments that will be challenging, like going through the night, and yet will be fruitful. Fruitful for you and fruitful for the people around you. And we really want to encourage you that you are here because God wants you here, and he wants to release you into more confidence and more fruitfulness all through the week in everything that you're doing. So we're going to pray, but we're going to pray with these two things in our heads. Okay?